Hey, what's up everybody? It's me, Lex, back at you with another video. This one took a little bit longer than usual because of Player Core 2 starting to ship out. I wanted to be as thorough as possible, so I waited for some information to get in, as I have not received the book yet. But what has been released by other content creators like Swing Ripper, Ronald the Rules Lawyer, and I want to actually find the last person's channel so I can cite everyone that I have sourced from. Let me pull it up here. Bad Luck Gamer. They have all released videos that cover a lot of the things that I have imported into Foundry for this combat demonstration. This includes a monk, although I do not believe there are any monk changes that are showcased here. An investigator, where I will be showcasing some of the changes, and an alchemist, where I am also showcasing some of the changes. Before we get into it, I wanted to shout out Patreon Afternoon Maps for creating this map. It's a very lovely map. I really appreciate the hard work. And I wanted to give you a quick rundown of the setting for this combat and each of these characters. So, this is actually best done as part of explaining Exxa. Exxa is our changeling investigator. Previously a criminal, now working with adventurers to kind of try and bring himself around to a more positive, happy life. He is an interrogation methodology investigator, which allows you to attempt to pursue a lead as part of a 1-minute conversation, and also gives you the no cause for alarm skill feat. As far as investigators' changes, they were primarily to devise a stratagem and pursue a lead. And then we got some new feats as well, one of which I will be showing off. Pursue a lead here is it has been changed to, beforehand it was you would find a clue and you'd spend a minute designating that clue as a lead, and then you get bonuses and free action devise a stratagem against anything that was related to that lead, more or less. What it's been changed to in Player Core 2 is more of a specific kind of mini-game. When you spend 1 minute examining a detail you think is part of a larger mystery, the GM will tell you if there's a larger mystery at foot, or let you know if there's nothing to learn. So you're never going to be pursuing a lead on something that isn't important anymore. You're guaranteed to, as long as you can pick up on a clue in the first place, follow it through. If there is a larger mystery at play, you can't pursue a lead for 10 minutes, but you can choose to open an investigation. To do so, you define the question at the heart of the mystery, and you can give it a name to better keep track of it. And then you get a +1 circumstance bonus to perception checks and any skill check that is related to getting closer to answering the question at the heart of an active investigation. You can maintain 2 investigations at a time, and if you pursue a lead afterwards, you have to let go one of your current investigations, and you can't pick it back up until your next daily preparations. And then when you solve an investigation, answer the question at the heart of it, the GM tells you that you've done so, but you don't lose any of the benefits unless you let go of that lead of your own volition. And additionally, if you discover points that to an even larger mystery, you can work with the GM to kind of retool your question or develop a new question on the case to further that discovery. For example, here with Exxa, the setting that we are in, there is the town of Bish-Kanur, which has been getting tormented and raided by the lich Parana'll. And so Exxa has spent a little bit of time in town, as everyone has. Parana'll is a well-known threat, and the party has prepared accordingly. And Exxa has created the case of the downstream lich, because he lives at the kind of bottom of a stream that the party has taken a small boat to get into to attack his place of residence. And the question at the heart of the lead is, why is Parana'll so dedicated to destroying the town of Bish-Kanur? And then additionally, with Pursue a Lead, the Devise a Stratagem action now functions as a free action if you're aware that creature could help answer the question at the heart of one of your active investigations. So it's a lot more broad than it was before, or at least more explicitly broad. Before, it would kind of depend on how your GM would interpret it. It could be a single creature, or it could be as broad as everything in a room, etc. But additionally, normally you would just roll a d20 and you would be able to substitute that, or be forced to substitute that on your next attack roll against that creature until your next turn. Nowadays, with the new Devise a Stratagem, you can either substitute it on your next attack, or you can choose to just forego the Devise a Stratagem roll. And you can't attempt to strike that target until the start of your next turn, but you get a +1 circumstance bonus to your next mental stat-based skill check or perception check involving the target. And if you would be getting the investigation bonus, which is very likely, then that bonus increases by 1 instead of you gaining the +1 bonus. This is very, very, very nice. And then I have a new feat here, Person of Interest. This is a new 2nd level feat for investigators. Once per 10 minutes as an action, choose a creature you can see who, to your knowledge, isn't tied to any of your current investigations, and for the next minute you can devise a stratagem against that creature as a free action. Other than that, I have a pretty simple build as far as Investigator goes. I have known weaknesses for additional information, and particularly the ability to share some combat bonuses. Unconventional weaponry, so that Exxa can wield an Alduri dueling sword with one hand. It is a D8 agile one-handed weapon. Flexible studies for a skill training at daily preparations, which Exxa has chosen to be Parana'll lore to help with gaining information about the town's well-known lich. Person of Interest, which I have just covered, and Detective's Readiness, which gives you your circumstance bonus from Pursue a Lead on saving throws against the subject of a lead. And you can use Clue In, their once per 10 minutes reaction to aid someone else with their investigation, to assist an ally's saving throw against that subject. Very nice. And then as far as that as well, Experienced Smuggler from the background. Intimidating Prowess for intimidation if Exxa can physically menace the target. Battle Medicine to heal with that open hand. Slippery Prey to try to ensure that Exxa will not get grabbed. And Recognize Spell, because being able to recognize spells is just a generally excellent thing to do. And then Armor Proficiency to be able to wear this breastplate effectively. Next up on our list of characters is Rot. Rot is a Spore Druid. I'm not going to get too far into the spell casting, but they focus specifically on kind of healing and debuffing and being able to get into melee and support with their wooden fists and grappling, as well as their innate jaw attacks as a Dromar, previously half-orc. Next up is Pilot. Pilot is the crew's kind of eccentric rat folk monk. He stays behind a mask at most times, although when he pulls into wolf stance and begins biting, the mask kind of slips up and you can see his snout. He has rat speak to convene with rats and gain information from them. You'd be surprised how often there's a rat in anywhere, really. Cornered Fury to get creatures off guard if they critically hit you and they are larger than you. Wolf Stance for those jaw unarmed attacks. And then Key Strike and Key Rush for some focus spells, particularly being able to do extra damage with that Key Strike or close massive distances with Key Rush. Titan Wrestler, because he is a little small and he likes to leap onto things, pull them down. and Intimidating Glare, because he is a scary guy. Additionally, he has the Glad Hand feat, mostly for speaking to rats, although he is very charismatic. And finally, we have Mashri, the Alchemist, and probably significantly the most changed class in Player Core 2. I'll get into everything a little more probably as we go along, but generally speaking, Mashri has a far smaller pool of resources to prepare at daily prep. In fact, only 8. But then throughout the day, Mashri is able to draw from the versatile vials pool. Foundry still labels them as infused reagents, but this should be versatile vials. Intelligence plus your level. And this recharges at a rate of 2 every 10 minutes. And it can be used with Quick Alchemy, which has also been changed to, as an action, you either create a consumable item of your level or lower, expending just a versatile vial and nothing else. That item remains potent until the start of your next turn. Or, and this is the other thing, you can create a quick vial, which is a versatile vial that can be used only as a bomb or for the versatile vial option from your research field. So this is the kind of last backup for all of the alchemists. If you run out of resources in a combat, everyone can use Quick Alchemy and create a versatile vial, which they can throw as a bomb. And then, depending on your research field, in addition to being able to use it as a bomb, you can use it for some other purpose. Mashri is specifically a bomber alchemist, which, if I go over here, I did not copy everything beyond 5th level, but that means that when Mashri throws an alchemical bomb with the splash trait, he can deal splash damage to only the primary target. Whenever he strikes with a versatile vial, so this includes the ones that he makes with Quick Alchemy, he can choose to have it deal cold, electricity, or fire damage instead of its normal acid damage. And then the field discovery at 5th level, when Mashri throws an alchemical bomb with the splash trait, he can cause the bomb to deal splash damage equal to his intelligence modifier instead of the normal amount. All of this pairs up incredibly well with the revised version of Quick Bomber. As an action, you either interact to draw a bomb, interact to draw a versatile vial, or use Quick Alchemy to create a bomb, which can be the quick vial for a versatile vial, because these are bombs. I have them placed into here. Acid, alchemical, consumable, infused, splash, and then they are bombs. And then you strike with the bomb. And so as a single action, Mashri can create a admittedly much weaker bomb. The versatile vials, as opposed to most alchemical items, and I'll pull this up here, you can see with the Steel Scour, for example, it has a +1 item bonus to attack rolls at level 3. The versatile vials, they only gain item bonuses and damage die increases a level after the normal bombers, or the normal bombs, that is. So at level 4, the versatile vial gains the ability to do 2d6 plus 2. And as well as that, the versatile vials do not have writer effects. So, for example, if I go into the alchemy tab here, the bottled lightning deals 2d6 electricity damage and 2 electricity splash damage. And then on a hit, the target becomes off guard until the start of your next turn. The versatile vials have no way to do anything like that. But they are just a go-to backup resource. They do some solid damage. It's very fun. I believe that's everything that I need to cover. Oh, yes. The rest of Mashri's build is he picked up the Wizard Dedication and basic Wizard spell casting, partially because I wanted to be able to have him use a few scrolls, and partially because I do not have access to the book, and so I could not fill this out with feats that I could be confident in telling you are as they appear in Player Core 2. I wanted to be sure with that. But anyways, to set the scene, the party has been going down this small underground creek for about 30 minutes or so. They know that at the end of the tunnel lies the lich, his lair. And finally, they see up ahead that it opens up into a small open area. Mashri will pull up his Wayfinder and activate it to start generating some light. They have been going through the darkness. Both Pilot and Mashri can see in the darkness, but neither Rot nor Exxa can. So it's good to get that ready now. Mashri will look to Pilot and make sure that the collar of the shifting spider that he has created for Pilot is still functional and still has a Drakeheart mutagen prepared into it. It does. He's checking his reagents as Pilot is continuing to ensure the boat makes its way to the shore. When they finally pull up, Exxa is the first to exit and will tie the boat to the dock here and then guide everyone off of the boat and onto the shore. They ready themselves, pulling out weapons and ensuring that they know what their plan is, and then they step up and onto this podium as a group with Pilot and Exxa leading the way, Rot and Mashri behind. And as they reach the portal to this small kind of dining hall room, they're confronted by a skeletal champion and a group of 3 bandits who are all sitting at this table. They kind of push away, their chairs clattering to the stone ground below, and begin shouting and clamoring for their weapons. And that will be the beginning of initiative here. I will add everyone to this combat and then roll. There we go. And I'm also going to make this a little bit larger up here. That should be the combat carousel. There we go. Normal size. Very nice. Mashri, it seems, is going to lead off this encounter. He has the ability to just start throwing some bombs. And I think he's going to do so. He will... Oh, before I forget about it, Pilot's Collar of the Shifting Spider activates as he rolls initiative, dealing him a single piercing damage and infusing him with the effects of a Drakeheart mutagen, which, as you can see, that is a +5 to his armor class, as he does not wear armor. Its duration is cut in half to only 5 minutes instead of 10, but that should be plenty as his fur kind of grows out into hardened scales. Alrighty. Now Mashri is going to, I'd say, create a quick silver mutagen with quick alchemy, as it is very good to get some buffs in early in the combat. He will use that with his second action. And then with his third action, he is going to simply use quick alchemy or quick bomber to, as a single action, both create and attack with a versatile vial at this bandit at the very bottom. Go ahead and throw that. And an unfortunate natural one means that that will not be doing any damage, even splash damage. But no resources were expended because Mashri was utilizing the versatile vials. Next up in combat order is Rot. Rot is going to start setting up some controlling spells with a mushroom patch. This is the Spore Druid's focus spell. It is a scaling size burst within range. And Rot will be placing that down, let's say here. It causes all of the creatures in the area to need to attempt a fortitude save at the beginning of each round and when the spell is cast. So they will all make this save. Oh, the skeletal champion at the head of the table is going to become dazzled and slowed 1 with a critical failure as the spores really get into it. Meanwhile, the bandit at the top of the table is going to be dazzled for 1 round, but if he leaves the area, he can rub his eyes to remove it. And the second bandit is going to be dazzled for a round with no way to remove it. The one at the bottom, however, is able to pull his clothing up over his face and protect himself from the spores, no problem. And with Rot's last action, she is going to, I would say, prepare to aid Pilot if he chooses to attack something while Rot is nearby. Rot will be using perception to attempt to aid by pointing out weaknesses in the bandit's armor. Next turn, this bandit that is dazzled is going to spend his first action grabbing his sword from his side. His second action leaving this cloud of spores, and his third action rubbing his eyes to become no longer dazzled, as it is quite uncomfortable. This next bandit is the one who was unbothered by the spores. He is going to also spend an action grabbing his weapon, and a second action moving up to here. He wants to stay with his ally. And then a third action, throwing his hatchet at Rot. Yeah. With a pretty significant range penalty, but a natural 20. That'll be a critical hit as he chucks his hatchet, and it will hit Rot for a very sizable 16 damage. Alrighty. Next up, we have Pilot. Pilot is going to be using an action to enter Wolf Stance, using another action to stride up to this bandit, and then a last action for Flurry of Blows to strike twice with those wolf jaws. Not wanting to see Rot becoming injured, both of those will hit and deal 36 total damage. As Pilot absolutely tears into this bandit, it is left near death immediately. Finally, at the head of the table, the skeletal champion is slowed 1. It is going to grab its sword, grab its shield, and begin heading down, pushing past these chairs to join the fray. Exxa figures that the bandits here, as they are residing within the lich, Parana'll's domain, are likely related to Parana'll himself, and is going to choose to devise a stratagem against the skeletal champion as a free action. That'll be a 4, and so Exxa will take the skill stratagem, and if Exxa later this round uses a mental-based action against that, or a mental stat-based skill action against the skeletal champion, then he will be able to add a +1 bonus to that check. Additionally, because of the known weaknesses feat, Exxa gets to recall knowledge against the skeletal champion. That'll be a DC 22 religion check, which will be made in private, and the pursue a lead bonus does apply here, and then will stack with the skill stratagem to result in a +2 circumstance bonus. A 24 is a success, and means that Exxa will learn that the skeletal champion is resistant to most physical types except bludgeoning, and a lot of energy types, with like acid being a good way to bypass it. And all of that was off of a free action. So Exxa will next stride up and take a swing at this bandit who is near death with the Alduri dueling sword. That'll be a hit, and will kill this bandit. He drops to the ground dead. And Exxa's third action will be spending an action to attempt to demoralize this bandit. Intimidation check with intimidating prowess, certainly for being on the battlefield, but especially for just dropping this bandit to the ground. That will be with a bonus, and a critical success means that this bandit will become frightened too. The final bandit in initiative order is going to take its turn. This is the one that was dazzled for the entire round. He will grab his hatchet and run up and swing at Pilot with that hatchet. It would have missed due to the, or it misses due to rolling so low, and would have bypassed the concealed from the cloud of spores. We're back over to Mashri. Mashri is going to attempt to start setting up some bonuses for his allies against the skeletal champion, attempting to kind of set it back, debuff it in some way. And so we'll stride up 15 feet, and then we'll use Quick Bomber to, as a single action, create a Dread Ampule, and then throw it. Whoopsie. There we go. That'll be a hit, doing 9 damage to the skeletal champion, and causing it to become frightened 1, debuffing all of its stats. Very nice. Mashri still has an action left, and has thus far created 2 alchemical items with infused alchemy. Mashri is going to go for an acid flask. No. A bottled lightning, with another quick alchemy on, let's say, the frightened bandit. We'll make an attack with multiple attack penalty and miss, but on a miss the splash damage still affects the primary target, so the bandit will take 4 damage. That is Mashri's turn. We're over to Rot. So the fun thing with Mushroom Patch is that it is not in fact sustained. At the start of Rot's turn here, all of the durations are going to elapse, which means that the creatures are no longer dazzled or slowed, but the foes are also going to need to make another fortitude save if they are still within, which the skeletal champion is. So a fortitude save versus DC 21. A 27 is a success, so the skeletal champion is dazzled. But if it leaves the area, it can spend an action to rub its eyes, removing the dazzled condition. Rot is going to take an opportunity to set up some protection. No, everyone's doing fine. Rot will take the opportunity to... Perfect. With 2 targets in range, use Electric Arc to draw a bolt of small electricity between the 2 of them that they will both have to make a reflex save against. The bandit on the right will fail, the bandit on the left will succeed. And so the bandit on the left takes half damage and the bandit on the right takes full. Then with Rot's last action, they are going to stride up to get behind their allies. This frightened bandit on the right does not like the look of everything that's going on. He will step in, make a hatchet strike against Pilot, critically hitting, which is quite lucky. Doing 16 damage against Pilot, and that's actually going to embolden him to attempt to make a second strike with his hatchet, but that one will miss, and at the end of his turn his frightened reduces by 1. Pilot is going to go ahead and go for the more injured looking one with a trip action first, attempting to pull the enemy down to the ground. And this should be benefiting from the item bonus on Pilot's hand wraps because of the wolf stance granting his jaws the trip trait. So I will add that. That'll be a success, and that means that this bandit is going to fall to the ground. Pilot will then follow up with a attempted demoralize, growling to attempt to increase that frightened to a 2, which will succeed in fact. This bandit becomes frightened 2, and then the monk, being the monk, flurry of blows for 2 attacks, which will unfortunately both miss. But this man has been dragged down to the ground. He is in a very vulnerable position. Alright, next up is the skeletal champion. Dazzled and frightened, he's going to raise his shield and stride up past the grouping of bandits and start focusing damage on Pilot. He understands combat tactics and knows that focusing someone down is a good call. He will take an action first to attempt to demoralize and will succeed, managing to frighten Pilot by smashing his shield, his sword and shield together, and then he will swing with his longsword, but will miss, fortunately for our party. Next up is Exxa, who is going to devise a stratagem for free against the skeleton. A 15 is quite good, and Exxa will also get a free recall knowledge check with that +1 pursue a lead bonus for investigating. Unfortunately, that's not going to succeed and will in fact critically fail. So Exxa is going to learn that the champion, despite appearing particularly trained, is more tough than trained and doesn't have any combat-related reactions. This is incorrect information, as the champion actually has the attack of opportunity or reactive strike ability, but Exxa critically failing means less information. But with a 15 to hit, Exxa is feeling pretty confident in a follow-up attack, and so we'll be using a single action against the bandit next to him, critically hitting and doing a very, very sizable amount of damage, 36, which is going to kill that bandit outright. Exxa's second action will be a step to close the gap, and then third action will be a strike using the devise a stratagem, which will unfortunately miss. Sometimes your plans do not work out. Alrighty, next up is this bandit at the top, who is going to spend an action striding around to get into flanking position with the skeletal champion, and then 2 actions simply hacking away at Pilot with the axe, but both will miss. Mashri is not the biggest fan of having this guy in his face, but is going to believe Exxa that he has no combat reactions and is going to attempt to use Quick Bomber to attempt to quick alchemy. However, the skeletal champion is going to react with his longsword, swinging and critically hitting Mashri, even through the concealed, doing 38 damage, which is in fact enough to drop Mashri straight down to the ground. Mashri loses his grip on all of his things as he tumbles to the floor, and the skeleton cackles from behind his shield. As we go to Rot's turn, Mashri's initiative is moved to above the skeletal champion. Alright, Rot does not like the looks of any of what's going on here, and decides that the barely injured bandit next to her being healed is not a large enough downside to not use a 3-action second-rank heal spell. So that will be affecting everyone. Here is the healing. The skeleton will be making a fortitude save versus that as damage, and will natural 20. But the rest of the group will be gaining 9 hit points. And that will be Rot's entire turn. Pilot is going to go for taking out this skeleton guy would be somewhat difficult with the piercing damage, but tripping him might not be. So the first action will be dedicated to attempting to trip. With a nat 2 on the dice, Pilot is going to hero point into a success. Alright, there we go. The champion will fall prone as a Pilot leaps at him after the toppling of Mashri. And then Pilot will follow up with a... I believe Pilot has not demoralized this bandit, and so we'll go for that. Flipping around after toppling their leader. A frightened 1 is going to be followed by Flurry of Blows to attack the remaining bandit twice. Unfortunately, Pilot will miss both, the first one only missing because of the frightened condition, which reduces at the end of his turn. Mashri, being injured, will stand from prone, is going to use an action to stride backwards, and then will use Quick Bomber to create a... let's go for a Steel Scour, which we already have one in here from daily preparations, but here we go. Steel Scour is a special bomb that allows you to target a metal object held by a creature. As standard rules would go, that makes it a DC 10 attack that cannot critically hit. And so I will be running with those rules. Mashri will make the attack with the Steel Scour and roll a 23. That means that it is a hit. It will do 2d8 persistent acid damage that ignores up to 5 hardness from the metal. And I will simply extempore a Steel Scour onto the skeletal champion here to be able to remember that. That will be Mashri's turn, and then we will move to the skeletal champion. It is going to re-raise its shield before standing and taking a swing at Pilot for knocking it down, which will be a miss. Next up, but before we move on to Exxa, that persistent 2d8 damage from the Steel Scour is going to do 12 to the skeletal champion's shield, leaving it at 8 hit points or below its broken threshold. Everyone sees the Steel Scour eat away at the skeletal champion's shield, and it is no longer protecting most of where he's trying to block with it. Exxa's gonna hopefully be able to capitalize on that with a devise a stratagem. Hitting a 12 on that should probably be fine. And Exxa will take a demoralize first with intimidating prowess. I don't remember if Exxa intimidated the skeleton, actually. Oh, and I believe the skeleton should no longer be dazzled because Rot has had a turn. Okay, well, I will simply have Exxa strike unless... Oh, attempting to feint would be a good leading action here. If only Exxa was trained in deception. Alright, Exxa will simply go for a strike, using devise a stratagem. And that will, in fact, be a hit and do a sizable amount of damage. The skeletal champion is going to go ahead and shield block what little of his shield is left, as I believe you can do so. Yes. Alright. He shield blocks the damage with his shield, taking 5. The shield also takes 5. And that eats up his reaction. Exxa will then follow up with another strike, which will hit and do 11 more damage to the skeletal champion. Unfortunately, that resistance against the slashing damage is pretty bad. This bandit is going to try to continue to capitalize on what's happening. Just going for a couple of swings at Pilot from behind. Both will miss. And then he's going to pull out a second hatchet for his offhand. All right. Rot is going to spend 2 actions casting Wooden Fists. This is a morph spell that grows her arms into long wooden columns, giving her fists 1d6 bludgeoning damage on their damage dice, making them lose the non-lethal trait and giving them reach. She's then going to attempt to grapple the skeleton with these extended arms, but will unfortunately fail with a low roll on the die. I'm actually going to hero point that. And that will be a successful grapple. Rot manages to lock down the skeletal champion from afar with the grown fists. Alrighty, Pilot is going to, seeing that the bandit is unharmed and the skeleton is currently on the back foot, is going to be going ahead and using Flurry of Blows with simple kicks against the skeleton. Both will hit, the second one because of Rot's grapple, and do a combined total of 28 damage to the skeletal champion, which will be able to pierce through that damage resistance very, very nicely. Pilot's second and third actions will be simply attempting more attacks against the skeletal champion here. He's really all in on being able to hit, and unfortunately just barely misses. With all these advantages stacked up, he figured it would be worth giving it a shot. Mashri is up next and is going to be using Quick Bomber to create a Dread Ampule, and will be using that same action to throw it at the skeletal champion, choosing to do the splash damage only to the target. That'll actually be a hit and do 11 mental damage, as well as make that skeleton frightened 1. Mashri is then going to try to preserve some resources, as he's currently 5 versatile vials down. He's simply going to use Quick Bomber to create 2 versatile vials for free and strike with both of them. Again, choosing to only do splash damage to the primary target. The first one is actually going to hit because of the frightened and the off guard, both Rot and his own, as well as the Quicksilver Mutagen, which will do some very nice damage. And then his last throw, unfortunately, is a critical miss and is not going to be able to try to finish off this skeleton with splash damage. So this skeletal champion is going to get one last turn here. It is currently grappled with a completely destroyed shield. It's going to go down swinging, though, taking 3 strikes at Pilot, as it currently can't move. It would like to move backwards, but that will actually be 3 misses because of Pilot's very good AC, even though Pilot is currently flanked. Alrighty. Exxa will be taking Devise a Stratagem against the skeleton. A natural 20 means that Exxa is going to be using an unarmed attack to attempt to just shatter it with a kick into the wall. And that will in fact be a critical hit. Who would have guessed? Doing a very sizable amount of damage and sending the bones of the skeleton flying into the room. This last bandit is going to put up his hands. He knows when he has been beat, and that will end our encounter. I'm going to kind of gloss over the following events, but to summarize them, the party are going to move into this open space and do some simple recovery. A lot of them are trained in medicine, so I'm not going to have them roll for healing. And over the course of the next 20 to 30 minutes or so, Exxa, as the party's interrogator, is going to try to get some information out of this bandit. He tells them that the lich is behind the doors to the north, and that the only way in is when the lich's champion, Bringast, returns to bring him out for another night of evil. Exxa is going to be able to pursue a lead on Bringast here by designating a question such as, why is Bringast helping Parana'll? Or, why is Parana'll only coming out with Bringast? So those are two examples of leads that Exxa could be pursuing here. It doesn't particularly matter which one for this case, but Exxa will do so. And Pilot's Drakeheart mutagen will run out. Mashri will be fashioning another Drakeheart mutagen into the collar of the shifting spider. Additionally, as Mashri heals and as the party does their general preparations, he will regain 2 for every 10 minutes over the course of 30 minutes or so, up to his maximum number of versatile vials here, up to 9, and these are the things that he has been using with quick alchemy. Very nice, so he's now back at full resources and can start utilizing items again. Eventually, they're going to get everything that they need out of this bandit and decide to lock him up in this room up here after they've explored the entire area. He is perfectly fine with that. He would rather not die, and they promise to let him out once they're done with the lich. Another 20 or so minutes pass, and from the right door over here, as everyone is kind of gathered together talking, the lich will, or the lich's champion Bringast, will kick down this door, and in simultaneous fashion, the lich, Bringast, or Parana'll himself, will kick down the door up here. He has been using magic to coordinate this attack with Bringast the whole time, and has prepared himself with a casting of False Life as well, before opening this door to give him some temporary hit points leading off in this combat. And simultaneously as well, he has mind-controlled the bandit, who only has unarmed attacks as the party has taken his weaponry. And the quick adjustment for unarmed attacks if an enemy gets disarmed is to reduce their attack modifier by 2 and reduce their flat damage by 2 per damage die. So since he only does a single die of damage, we reduce the flat damage by 2 and just change it to bludgeoning for his fist attack. But this bandit has been mind-controlled by the lich, as he had this entire thing under his control, and he bursts down the door as well. And this will begin the final encounter of this demonstration, as I add everyone to the combat, and then roll everyone's initiatives. And I will also be resetting the hero points to 1 for all of the characters. Alrighty. Leading off this combat is going to be Champion Bringast. Champion Bringast is a skeleton champion with an extraordinarily strong shield and the Retributive Strike champion feat, though the party does not know this yet. He is going to spend an action raising a shield, and then 2 actions running up here to get near his charge, the lich. I should also have all of the party roll for the lich's frightful presence. As he kicks down the door, the majesty of his evil magic washes over all of them. That will be failures for Exxa and Pilot, who will be frightened 2, and successes for Mashri and Rot, who will be frightened 1. I also have, in fact, forgot again to do the Collar of the Shifting Spider for Pilot, taking 1 piercing damage and becoming injected with the Drakeheart mutagen, massively boosting his armor class. And that will last for 5 minutes. In fact, though, the penalty to will saves that a Drakeheart mutagen imposes means that Pilot critically failed the Frightful Presence and will be frightened 4 instead. Alrighty. So that is Champion Bringast's turn, and then we will move on to Parana'll himself. Parana'll, an accomplished magic user, has a large variety of spells at his disposal. He is going to be leading off with a 4th rank invisibility on himself to be able to effectively skirt the party around and cause them to struggle immensely with being able to combat him. And then with his last action, he will be, I'd say moving so that the party doesn't know exactly where he is. And that will be to down here next to Champion Bringast. Next up is the Bandit. The Bandit is going to rush out from this corner, being mind-controlled, and just immediately attack Mashri, missing with his fist. He kind of trips to the side. Rot is none too pleased with the decision with the abilities of the foes, and specifically being able to cast spells, and so will be to attempt to ensure that the lich is not within this room up here, will be casting Wildfire. This places down a 10-foot burst that you can sustain and increase the size of when you sustain. That does damage when creatures move on the ground through the area, for each square that they move into. Rot will be placing it there to attempt to force enemies out. And then Wildfire has some very particular wording. Usually, when a spell has a sustained effect, for example, I will bring up the Bless spell. It says, once per round on subsequent turns, you can sustain the spell to increase the emanation's radius, etc. Wildfire's text is simply, each time you sustain this spell, the radius of the burst increases by 5 feet. So, Rot will be doing so to increase the radius to 15 feet. And we'll actually adjust it down a little bit, wanting to make sure that the skeleton here is unable to simply step out without taking any damage. And I will extempore that effect onto Rot here for easy reference. That is her whole turn, though. Pilot, currently very frightened, is going to use an action to enter Wolf Stance, and is going to maintain some target prioritization, striding over like so. The movement history is a little strange. Pilot will be able to stride around like this for a single action, and then spend another action attempting to demoralize this bandit as he's running past. Will succeed, in fact, despite the frightened penalties, and then we'll finish off with a flurry of blows, attempting to absolutely destroy this bandit. We'll hit twice, once not critting because of the frightened, and then the second time only hitting because of the off guard. And those two hits combined will do 23 damage to this bandit. Alrighty. Next up is Mashri, who is a little concerned about the invisibility, but the party had in fact spoken with the town's leadership before coming out here, and had prepared on one of them. I believe it might be on Exxa. It is on Exxa. Alright, we'll get to that in a moment then. Mashri, concerned about the invisibility up top and concerned generally about the state of things, is going to create a bestial mutagen. No. Mashri's going to cast Fleet Step from his spell list as a wizard to gain an immense bonus to his speed for 1 minute. And then he will simply finish off his turn with a quick alchemy, quick bomber, more particularly, to throw a bottled lightning at, not a bottled lightning, an acid flask at Champion Bringast. There we go. Acid flask and target and throw. That'll unfortunately be a miss, but the splash damage will still affect the champion and do a small amount of damage. Alrighty. So Exxa, with leads on both Parana'll and Bringast, but only able to see Bringast, will spend an action devising a stratagem against Bringast. An 18 is actually quite high. And Exxa will go for the recall knowledge despite the frightened causing difficulties. A failure means no information. Exxa's first action will be striding up into this fire here, which will unfortunately, with the wildfire effect, cause Exxa to take 1 damage. Exxa will then, or that should be 2 damage, it just did not scale properly. Whoopsie. There we go. Exxa will then be striking with his second action, utilizing that very high roll to attempt to get some immense damage off. And actually, yeah, just a simple strike. That'll be a hit and do some decent damage. Champion Bringast is going to spend an action shield blocking that, and very, very little damage is going to make it through, with the slashing damage being reduced by the skeletal resistances. Exxa is quite worried by the absolutely pitiful amount of damage that he just did, and will spend an action backing up. Next up is Champion Bringast, who is going to push the advantage while he has the chance. He'll move up to here and then spend an action maintaining his shield being raised, and then will strike at Rot with his sword. That'll be a critical hit, doing 34 damage to Rot. That is quite dangerous, and everyone sees that and is somewhat taken aback. Parana'll is going to be attempting to utilize a spell to some great advantage. This will be, yes, a stride 2 here, and then well next to Bringast here, casting Weapons Storm, the staff that he is holding in his 2 hands, kind of conjuring outwards into this massive cone, and he cares not for the bandit, unfortunately. And this 30-foot cone, Exxa is going to attempt to recognize the spell using Arcana, and will unfortunately fail recognizing the spell. So the party has no idea what's coming at them, just that they have to make reflex saves. And those reflex saves are going to be pretty bad. Rod is going to use a hero point to avoid critically failing. Exxa is going to just deal with it. And the damage will be 4 dice of damage, so 4d8. And that is 17 damage, which means double for 34 to Exxa. Rot will be simply taking the 17. Mashri will also simply be taking the 17, and this bandit will be taking the full 34 for critically failing. This lich has just had an immensely powerful turn, and the party is worried that they might have to back up. Next up is Rot. The party does know that the lich is in this square currently, though they would still struggle to target him because of the invisibility that he has. They would require a DC 11 to target a square. Rot does not like the look of any of this. I also forgot to detail the fire damage. The champion was immune to the damage because of his high resistance, and I just simply forgot to have Parana'll's damage rack up, so he will take 4 as he moves through the wildfire. Alright, Rot will step backwards and then cast a 3rd rank heal on herself, healing for 38 hit points. And that will be her whole turn. Alrighty. Over to Pilot, who is not very happy with what is going on. Pilot is going to dash across like so and dedicate a focus point to key striking at this skeleton, doing vitality damage to attempt to perhaps proc a weakness, even though the champion does not actually have one. And then that'll be a flurry of blows as part of the key strike using fists. And that'll be 1 hit and a hero point to maybe get a second. Unfortunate. But that first hit will do 12 damage to Champion Bringast, who will take it. Pilot then, with his last action, is going to attempt to aid Exxa in attacking the skeleton using his attack modifier. As he's hit the champion, he knows where to aim. Over to Mashri, who is not too pleased with the events transpiring, especially that weapon storm. Mashri is going to pull out, sure, a quick alchemy to create a bestial mutagen, a moderate one. Here we go. And then we'll spend an action passing it to Exxa to pass to an ally who is far away from you. It is a DC 15 attack roll, dexterity thrown attack roll, and it has a range increment of 10 feet. So with Exxa being 15 feet away, it's a single range increment, meaning that a plus 12 attack modifier, or actually that would be plus 11, needs to hit with a -2 penalty from range. But that will hit the 15 DC, and this bestial mutagen gets tossed over to Exxa successfully. Mashri will then use an action on Quick Bomber to create another Dread Ampule and throw it at the champion. Again, limiting the splash to only the foe. And that will do 4 splash damage to the champion. Next up is Exxa. Exxa has a bit of a setup turn here. He will be drinking the bestial mutagen, which will be granting him bonuses to his unarmed attack rolls, so that he can be competing with his unarmed attack, since his sword is all but useless against the skeleton. And then he will be pulling out and using the Revealing Mist. The Revealing Mist creates a 30-foot cone that causes invisible creatures in the area to become concealed rather than undetected. And he will be placing that area like so. This is what they prepared for with the village, because the lich is known to be crafty. So now this lich is simply concealed rather than invisible. Very nice. Next up, the champion. Re-raising his shield is going to attempt to put down this ratfolk monk with 2 actions striking. Both will hit and do 15 damage and then 16 damage. Pilot is holding on. We're over to Parana'll, who is going to spend all 3 actions on Magic Missile, attempting to do some pretty sizable damage to Mashri. Exxa will be attempting to identify the spell and will succeed, telling the party that it is a magic missile. Unfortunately, there is just about nothing they can actually do about it. And so with 3 actions and 2 missiles per action, that is going to be 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 5, and 6 damage against Mashri, which all combined together is going to be 20 damage that he is going to take. He is near death, but that is the lich's entire turn. Rot, now that she has regained some hit points, is going to cast Wooden Fists, and using the reach from the fists, attempt to grapple the champion. Reroll the grapple. Maybe I could get a better result with a hero point. Unfortunately, that would be a failure due to double low rolls. For the sake of the story specifically, I'm going to call that a success, and Rot will grab the skeleton. I hope that's not too big of an issue for you. And that will end Rot's turn. Also, the wildfire has gone. I believe that was last turn. I'm not perfect at tracking durations. My apologies. Pilot is going to try to capitalize on this grab with another key strike after attempting to demoralize the skeleton here. I don't remember if he did so already. Alright, a critical failure is fine. And a key strike for the flurry of blows. Doing vitality damage. 2 fist attacks will both hit despite everything and combine their damage into a 26 damage blow. The champion is actually not going to shield block. He's trying to save his reaction because his lich master is currently revealed. He does not want to not be able to protect him. But that is going to be to his detriment. Pilot on a roll here with the last action will simply attempt another punch. Unfortunately failing. Mashri is going to try to intensify the debuffs on this champion. The group has kind of silently decided that it's probably a good idea if they get rid of the guy. And so we'll be using Quick Bomber thrice for Dread Ampules. Unless this first one hits, which it does, in fact. So a hit will do 11 damage to the champion and cause it to become Frightened 1. Mashri's second action then will be creating a Drakeheart. No. Creating a acid flask. Yes. And attempting to throw it at the champion. Acid flask will also hit and do some sizable, persistent, and splash damage to this champion. This champion is finally getting damage racked up on it. And then Mashri does not want to be brought down, so he will be pulling back from the fight a little bit. Finally here, we have Exxa, who is going to spend an action, or a free action, devising a stratagem against the champion. Unfortunately, that 4 is going to be not worth much, and Exxa will simply step up here and attempt to strike at the lich with an unarmed attack. The Jaws attack. A hit is going to go ahead and do some damage, but will also provoke the Retributive Strike from the champion, who is going to give the lich resistance to that damage, reducing it to 8, and then the champion gets to strike back with a long sword, but will fortunately miss Exxa. And now Exxa, having already baited out that reaction, is going to go ahead and go for a follow-up claw attack. But unfortunately will miss on the lich. The champion, currently grabbed, does not want to be grabbed. It will raise a shield and attempt to escape. Succeeding. And will then attempt a strike at Exxa, who is currently attacking the lich. A hit will do 13 damage to Exxa. Pretty sizable, but Exxa is still standing. But we'll see if that's true after the lich's turn. And the champion takes an immense amount of damage from that acid flask, looking on the verge of collapsing into bones. Alrighty. Parana'll is going to release a hand from its staff and go for a swipe at Exxa. You didn't expect the lich to be dangerous in melee, but fortunately a low roll means a miss. And Parana'll will simply back up, not wanting to become injured anymore, and spend its last action bringing up a shield around itself. Alrighty. We're back over to Rot, who is going to take advantage of the situation here to stride to the side and then cast a lightning bolt, which will arc forwards up and blast into the wall behind the two. They will both make their reflex saves. Parana'll succeeding and the champion also succeeding. And the damage, half damage for success, will... I did not want to deal damage to Exxa. Whoopsie. That's what I get for not clearing my targeting. There we go. Okay. But with these two injured by half, that is going to let 3 damage get through to the champion and 13 damage get through to Parana'll as that bolt of lightning passes straight through them. Rocks and rubble and dust kind of arcs through the air around Rot. We'll move on to Pilot, who is looking a little worse for wear, but is going to try and finish off this champion. Pilot will step twice to avoid the champion's reactive strike, and then use Flurry of Blows to get 2 attacks off. Unfortunately, both will be misses. And we will move on to Mashri, as Pilot is no longer frightened. Mashri is going to start to close the distance a little bit again here, and try to simply quick bomber twice to see if splash damage might be able to bring this champion down. The first one on a miss will still do 4 damage. And the second one as a critical miss will unfortunately not be enough. Looks like this champion is going to get one last turn here. It is going to forego raising its shield as Pilot is running past. It fears for its lich's life and will swing thrice with its sword. In fact, actually, it'll swing once with its sword and then let go of its shield and swing twice with the claw, hitting Pilot once for 10 damage. Alrighty. And then the acid damage from the acid flask is going to bring champion Bringast down. Alrighty. Parana'll sees where things are going here and is going to cast... Yeah. Breathe Fire at 4th rank. Creating a 15-foot cone, like so, to kind of attempt to damage Pilot. Actually, the Lich is going to delay before doing that, so that it can catch multiple people in that blast. And this is, in fact, going to work as Exxa is... or going to not work, as Exxa will stride up behind to get into flanking position, using Devise a Stratagem to get a 19 prepared. And then we'll make a Jaws attack with that Bestial Mutagen, as it is in fact a stronger attack than the sword due to the accelerated proficiency on alchemical items. That'll be a critical hit, but unfortunately, because of the concealed condition, the Parana'll is not going to get hit. Although, I believe hero points can re-roll flat checks. I want to be sure. Let's see. Hero points can be spent for a re-roll. Okay. In the interest of heroics, then, we will reattempt that d20 roll with a hero point. Succeeding the DC 5 flat check, Exxa will critically hit and do 56 damage because of the high roll, strategic strike, strength bonus, and the damage from the bestial mutagen as a whole. And that is going to bring the Lich down quite a lot. So is Exxa's free action, Astride a Strike, and with one action left, there'll be a Claw Swipe, emboldened, hitting for even more damage. But the Lich will be able to resist some of that. We'll move over to Rot next. They're going to attempt to close this out here as a group. Rot will stride up next to the Lich here and cast Gouging Claw out of a spell heart, doing some slashing damage. Unfortunately missing, but will gain the effects of that spell heart, the clay sphere. And so for the next minute, Rot's unarmed attacks have the versatile bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing traits. And that will be Rot's entire turn. Pilot is going to try to close this out with a simple flurry of blows on the wolf jaws. One hit will be doing 15 damage. And Parana'll is still holding on. Pilot is going to attempt to just strike twice more, as I believe Pilot has already attempted to demoralize. Both will miss. Mashri, maybe with the consistency of splash damage, could get some finisher damage. A single action for Quick Bomber will create and throw an acid flask at Parana'll, which will succeed and lodge some persistent acid onto the Lich. Another singular action will create and throw a versatile vial, which will miss, but still do some splash damage. And then a third action for another free versatile vial will unfortunately critically fail for no splash damage. It would have been nice to have closed it out. Alrighty. The Lich is going to get one more turn here, it looks like. Being able to cast a Vampiric Touch in a last effort to stay alive. And I know that I skipped the turn there with the delay. That is my bad. Although I do not believe it would have changed the outcome of all of this all too much. Parana'll will be attempting that Vampiric Touch against Pilot to try to bring down the party's most threatening fighter. A failure, and Vampiric Touch having the death trait means that, unfortunately, Pilot, unless a hero point... Oh, no. Pilot will be dying outright to that spell because of the death trait. It is quite unfortunate, but that is just the risk that you face when you go up against a Lich. And then the Lich will also gain temporary hit points equal to half the amount taken, which would have been, let's see, how much damage? 12. Okay. I need to wait for the system to automate all of this for me. There we go. Okay. So 12 temporary hit points for the Lich here. Put that in. And then it will spend a single action attempting to bring down Exxa as well with a free hand. That'll critically hit. Not a death effect, fortunately, but Exxa is going to go down to the damage. Dying 2 because of the critical hit. Dropping the sword. And then with the save, will fortunately not become paralyzed. Alrighty. And with that, we move on to Rot's turn, as the Lich is going to take 10 acid damage. Still barely hanging on. Rot believes that a save spell may be able to close this out, and will cast Caustic Blast. It is a 5-foot burst right here. The Lich needs to make a reflex save, which it will fail, and it will take 6 splash damage from the 2d8, and that is in fact enough to destroy the Lich. The party at heavy cost, as Mashri will run over to Exxa's unconscious body, quick alchemying a elixir of life and using it to restore him back to consciousness. They will grieve over their lost friend and go through the Lich's goods to attempt to find its phylactery. On this day, they had a mixed victory. The Lich has been stopped and the village will be safe, but it has not been stopped for good. They are not able to find the Lich's phylactery. It in fact is not here, and Exxa is going to be able to pursue that lead in the future. And with the passing of their ratfolk friend Pilot, they are redoubling their efforts and their investment, and they will be as well looking for another adventuring group, or another adventuring party member. So that was the combat demonstration for specifically the Alchemist and Investigator in Player Core 2. I didn't get the opportunity to utilize Person of Interest due to the relevancy of all of the creatures in the setting. But I did get to show off a lot of the Alchemist features, and I did get to show off how, for an investigator, devise a stratagem is far more broad now, far more applicable to get that free action. I also got to demonstrate some of the changes with the bestial mutagen, like it no longer granting a penalty to armor class. I hope you enjoyed. This was a lot of work to set up. And let me know in the comments down below what you would like me to do next. Once I get my book, I'll be covering hopefully some stuff from Player Core 2. And once I've been able to piece it all together and Path Builder gets an update, I will likely be doing some of the class overviews that I've been putting off. Because I didn't want to release something that would be outdated within the next few weeks or month or so. Thanks everyone. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And I will see you next time. See ya. See ya.